What are we talking about right now? Okay.
Welcome back, everybody. This is continuing the conversation. If you did not get the opportunity to watch Monday's live episode on Facebook, head over to Facebook right now, Facebook Watch, or head over to YouTube, our YouTube page at Couples in Conversation, and get in on that conversation. We had a lot of perspectives. We were talking about safety nets. We were talking about a meme about spouses and how attitudes change and how we what we need to do to make sure that our spouses are not getting the brunt, of our feelings. It was great conversation. So if you have not had the opportunity to watch that, go ahead and pause this video now. Head on over to episode 4 and give that a watch, and then come on back and we'll watch this. The topic that we're going to be discussing now is, in a relationship, what usually causes more frictions and arguments? Is it the communication itself, or is it the response to the communication? All right, so what usually causes more friction? Is it the communication itself or people's response to communication? And we are going to start this off with Tammy.
Thank you, Mills. I think it goes both ways. But if I have to choose one, I think it's because of the response to the communication. And I think that goes back to us saying many of times we need effective communication. And I just feel like a lot of times, due to whatever reason, we cannot respond accurately due to frustration, due to maybe talking about the same thing over and over again. But I think most times it's not the communication itself, but it's the response that causes all the friction and arguments in a relationship.
So before we move on, Tammy, and I don't mean to put you, I do mean to put you on the spot, because that's what we do. I want to hear your perspective from when you were in your relationship, because obviously you have decided to dissolve your marriage. Okay. How did this happen, or what did this look like when you were in your marriage?
In my marriage, I think it was the response to a communication, because I think maybe a year prior to me and Keith deciding that we wanted to separate for good and divorce, Kevin became a talker. Okay, he was the master communicator. He wanted to talk about everything in a book. And me, I was tired of talking. Like, we just talked about this. So most of our arguments came about because of my response. And my response wasn't necessarily a negative response. It was just that I don't want to talk about this no more. We just talked about this last week. Why do we got to talk about this again? So I don't think it was the communication or what he was communicating itself. I think it was my response that caused for him to get angry and caused for us to have an argument because of my response. So I think in my relationship, it was my response that caused the arguments, because after a while I just shut down and just said, you know what, I'm not going to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this no more, and I'm not going to say anything. And whenever you ignore anyone, it causes for them to get frustrated. So that was my response, and I think my response is what caused the arguments. Now, if I would have just been a good girl and said, okay, we could talk about this 50 million times till you blew in the face, and if I would have just gone ahead and went on with keeping communication, we'll probably still be together now. But I kind of shut down. So I think it was my response that caused all the arguments and the friction.
Okay. Jennifer, I'm coming to you. What does this look like, or what is your perspective on how this looks in our relationship? Is it usually the communication itself, or is it usually the response?
I think for us, it's probably the response. And I don't think that it's necessarily even the verbal response. I think it's more of facial expressions or body language. Again, my face is usually tore up. Even if I'm not talking smart, my face is probably looking crazy. And so you, even though you said that you shouldn't react off of somebody else's behavior, you react to my body language or to my face, and you have issues. And I think that causes it to go south. But I mean, it can be verbally, because I do tend to snap back when I feel like, I mean, in layman's words, you're saying something stupid. So I think that it can go both ways. But for us, I think it's more nonverbal and body language that causes the friction.
Okay. The Crawfords, what does it look like in your relationship?
You gonna go? No, go. I said go.
Okay, so I think it kind of goes both ways. Like Tammy said, I think for me, a lot of times it could be context of whatever the argument is, which can cause the emotional or the verbal or the facial expression. I think that has a lot to do with it, and it plays a part, pretty much in whatever the friction is. I think so. It is both for me, because it has to be the context, which would be the reason why I'm, popping off. So a lot of times that could be what causes me to, like pop off, because sometimes I might come like right in, like, what's going on? Like, I'm coming right in, like it ain't even no, well, can you explain this, honey? No, I'm coming right in, like, what's going on? Like it's never, like me coming into it. It's because of the context, which causes, me to just go at it. And with, Jonathan, for the most part, it's always an explanation, or trying to excuse the behavior instead of just taking accountability. So I think that is what really caused a lot of our issues. It's more so we're both trying to hold on to whatever it is, trying to say, nope, okay, I didn't do it, it was your fault. No, you did it, it's your fault. So that was a lot of, what we, went through, still going through, but we kind of learned it from it. But that's kind of like what a lot of our relationship is. It's just more so of always the response. If I'm coming to you for you to take accountability, but you won't, instead you'll just try to, well, it wasn't me, it was because you did X, Y, and Z, or try to always have an explanation. No, just say, you know what? I'm sorry, I apologize, it won't happen again, and then repent and don't do it again.
All right, go ahead, Jonathan.
I would like to take the time to say, I think, to me, it's 65% communication itself and 35% the response. Majority of the time, my response is always predicated to how everything is come to me. And a lot of times, like Erica tells me all the time, I don't hear myself. And I tell her, Erica never hears herself. She hears me when I respond, but she never hear me. She never hear herself. And I try to tell her that all the time. So me, it's more so the communication. If you came to me, like she just said it herself, she not coming to really talk. She coming to get in there. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's like jump rope. She double dutching. I'm still jump roping. I'm on one rope. You know what I'm saying? Erica already ready to double dutch. No, if you come at me just with the one rope instead of with two of them, then I might can get in there with you. But when you already in there like this, and I can't even get in there because I don't even know where to come in at, it's a problem. And that's how I am. So to me, it's 65% communication itself and 35% the response. And I know y'all like that one, bad boy.
That was a good one. The Greens, what does this look like in your marriage?
So I think in general, it depends on the person if the communication is the cause of the argument or if the response to communication.
I want to hear about
but just hold on. So I was given that first, my general first, and then I was gonna say, but for me,
you take too long, baby.
But for me or for us, it's usually the response. Jason can be a very aggressive when he wants to be. Not like he used to be when we first met, but when he wants to be, he can be very aggressive. So at the start, kind of like Erica said, when she was just like, I get right into it, like what up was going on. That's kind of, that's kind of how Jay is, really, really aggressive, really like, instead of saying, hey babe, let me talk to you for a minute, because I can respond better to that, hey babe, let me talk to you for a minute, versus why you know what I'm saying, like, and it's just like, what? So now I don't even hear what you're saying, because you started the communication wrong. So I don't even, us getting a resolution is not going to happen. For me, that's how I communicate. Okay.
All right, what I experienced with my wife,
which is me, so.
What? Yeah. So what usually happens in our situation is it starts off a lot more, I wouldn't say cordial, a lot more, I wouldn't even say jovial, but it starts off pretty much monotone. And one thing that,
does it?
Yeah, don't, come on, stop talking now, it's my turn. Thank you. One thing that she doesn't realize is that she's very loud, and she speaks and acts with a certain attitude. So when certain issues start off, just listen, we need to do such and such, such and such. Everything with Christina, with my wife, is met with a rebuttal, even before she even hears what I have to say. Before I even get my sentence out, she cuts me off. And we've had several conversations about it, so she can't deny it. So while I'm talking, she's already formulating in her mind. Yeah, because you're louder, Tammy. You can't, if you on 13 and somebody else is on 10, it will seem like they're more quieter than you.
Christina is not loud.
Exactly, compared to you. Oh, you gonna try to be as quiet as possible. You the loudest. Anyway, so that's what I experienced. And so when she gets defensive, and it's defensive like that, it could be something that I could say, listen, I'm doing this, this, and this, but this is what I need you to do. Immediately when she hears this is what I need you to do, oh, you sound like my mama talking about. No, I ain't even coming at you like that. So once she gets upset, and once it's met with a rebuttal, and she be butting heads, then of course I'm gonna stand my ground. Christina likes for her to get her way without conceding to anything else. So a lot of times in communication, that's what we experience. So instead of it being something where I'm trying to get my point across, in her mind is you're already attacking me. When it's not necessarily an attack, but now it's turned into an argument because you feel attacked off because you're immature. And that's the way I look at it. And that's just how it is. You are very immature with regard to communication. I love you, but you're immature. I'm gonna go ahead and reclaim my time because I think that's enough. So y'all know enough about that.
That's so funny that we heard a spouse say that, and it's one of the spouses that is not really interested in talking about communication. So that's quite hilarious to me. But so in my marriage, what I would say is I agree with my wife. I do believe that it is usually the response, because it's hard for me when my wife is talking, I'm processing what she's saying at the same time that she's talking. And when she has a toe up face, not only am I processing what she's saying, but I'm trying to process what she's thinking, And I almost feel like there are some times that I would say, and I won't say men or women, but with my wife, there are some times where I feel like she wants me to be a mind reader. So even though she's speaking to me, her thoughts are going at the same time. And she's like, not only do I need you to listen to what I'm saying, I need you to be listening to what I'm thinking too. And it's just like, that's like two conversations at one time. And I can't really keep up because it's two totally different conversations. So that's what that looks like in our marriage. And I have to say, even though Jennifer's face is toe up 97.9% of the time, her communication is usually not bad unless she is intentionally. Now she does. I'm not going to say often, but she definitely chooses to have very intentional toe up communication from time to time, but in general, her communication isn't really bad. But I usually, before I received it as bad because of how she looked. And those nonverbal communications are very important. And this is one thing I want to bring up. We talked about this on an episode a long time ago, and this is Dem Crawford's, when we were talking about I want to say the correct system, Xbox One. Is that the correct system? Nope, still no. What is it? Whatever that system. Okay, the Xbox One. So I want to bring that situation back out, right? Because we talked about that on an episode, and I think that we had discussed that was a situation of what I said versus what I heard, that kind of thing. So I would like for us to go back to that situation and talk about, was that a communication issue or was that a receiving issue? Go ahead.
I would say it was definitely a receiving. I feel like if I'm coming to you and because you're frustrated about something else, kind of goes back to what we were ending, in the last segment. If I'm coming to you and I'm just kind of talking to you and you just jump off and just go off on me because you're mad about the Xbox cutting off, it not even necessarily received. Well, it was terrible all around. It was just jacked up because I feel like if I'm coming to you trying to have a conversation with you and I'm asking you, like, are you okay? And then you basically snap on me just because the video game cut off. Like, really? Like, is that even necessary?
Didn't Tammy say sometimes we just don't want to be hugged?
Excuse me?
Didn't Tammy say sometimes we just don't want to be hugged? That was that time.
I don't even have a comment. I don't even have nothing to say because why you gotta be so stupid? Seriously.
That was a good point. Good point, cuz.
No, that doesn't make it right. That does not make that right at all. If I'm just trying to talk to you and then you just go off on me just because of the video game. Come on, out of video game, seriously.
Babe, it wasn't you.
Could have fooled me.
It wasn't you that I went off on. It was the pre-you that came. The pre-you knew.
Shut up.
You shouldn't have said nothing to me. But then the after you that came after is what caught the brunt of it. So I didn't want to be hugged.
So I want to go into this really quickly. Tammy, coming back to you because this is your topic today. I got 7 questions. So this is you. So I want to talk about, obviously, because our purpose for doing this in general is because we want to save marriages. We want to give people real life. This is what's happening. This is how this went. These are, our opinions on how to make these things better. So in talking about this, and you stated that, in your marriage, you were talking at one point, and then once it got towards the end, you didn't want to talk anymore. We talked about these things all the time. So what I want to know from you, from your learned perspective now, because obviously you are out of the situation, what is a better way to handle when your spouse is coming to you at a time where you feel like you don't want to talk, or you're not interested in talking because you feel like you've already talked about whatever the topic is, however many times you talked about it? What is a different or a better way to handle that where it does not end up in you being over it and you like, I don't want to talk, period. I'm done. What is a better way, something that we can take back to do that differently?
Good question, Mills.
Frank.
I think that going back to one of our other topics, compromise is important. Sometimes you're going to have those conversations when you really don't want to have those conversations, or when you're over those conversations. And if it's just during a time, whereas, you know what, I don't need to talk, and if I talk, it's going to end up in an argument, I think it's okay for you to let your spouse know that, like, you know what, now it's not a good time. It's not a good time for me. I don't want this to end up in an argument. Can we please discuss this tomorrow? For an example, this happened between me and Jay the other day. I was angry about something. I wanted to talk to him about it, and he stopped me in my tracks and said, Tammy, we'll talk about this tomorrow. And you know what? When we talked about it yesterday, because it was just 2 days ago, it was a better result, because that day I was hot. So I think it's okay to compromise sometimes and say, you know what, I'm going to talk about this even though I know I really don't want to. However, sometimes if you feel like the communication or the context of the communication is going to cause you to be in a rage or anything, I think it's okay for you to tell your spouse, you know what, give me a moment to process this. And I think your spouse should respect that.
Okay, go ahead, Jonathan.
I have been trying to do something a little different. And what I do is, when I'm at work, whatever kind of day that I'm having, I'll talk to myself and I'll tell myself, when I go home, because I know what Erica goes through on her job, even though she's working from home, I know how stressful it can be. I'll tell myself when I go home, and I've been doing it, and I'll ask her how is her day. So she can start off and she can vent to me instead of her coming at me when I don't feel like talking. And I've been telling myself to do that. Go home, just ask her how her day was, so that way she can go ahead and talk to me. Therefore, once she's done, I ain't got to worry about it no more. Instead of me being stressed out because I don't feel like talking at the moment. And that's something that I've been trying to do that's different, so that I can let her get it out off her chest. You know what I'm saying? And then maybe I can throw some of the stuff that maybe I've been going on at work, but that's what I've been doing with myself. Let me go ahead, clear my head, get myself together, go home, and go ahead and let her say whatever she got to say to me. That's what I've been doing different.
Okay. Jason, I want to hear how you handle this, because obviously, I don't know if the viewers know, but Christina is my sister, my blood sister. We have the same parents, and she's extremely, extremely stubborn, like her way or no way. So I want to know how, no comment, Christine, I'm talking to Jason. So I want to know how do you deal with that, that communication piece of it? Because I know, she can just be like, I don't want to talk, and she's not going to talk. You can be talking to her and she'll just sit there and look at you. So how do you deal with that?
Don't come for me. Do not come for me.
It's come on, man, chill out. It's in the beginning it was real bad, and once we started living with each other, stop needing me, man, for real. Once we got like living with each other and pretty much got engaged, and I think once she basically felt like once she felt like it was comfortable, then she was just like, all right, I'm about to just be me. And whenever there was an issue, whenever there was like a certain, because I think honestly, you look back some of the older episodes, you will see her come to not even epiphany, but you will see her stating the fact that giving somebody the silent treatment is one way to deal with issues. And from her perspective, that's what she thought was effective, but didn't realize that it caused more issues than anything. And that's one of the things that we dealt with. But over time, she's starting to understand that, okay, well, maybe I need to be accountable for how I act, and maybe I need to be accountable for how I process certain information. Because I think Jonathan stated, like, I remember years ago, I'm talking about years ago, I used to tell Christina, I said, it's like you playing like double dutch. You're not listening to what I'm saying. You're just waiting for me to stop saying or take a break in my sentence in order for you to jump in and basically defend yourself. And so one thing she has to understand, and she's starting to understand a little bit, is that it's not always a defense. Sometimes it's constructive criticism, and it's not necessarily something that's coming because as you grow older with the person, because all our other situations are different, but some of them are similar. Like in terms of Erica and Tammy, you had to grow with your spouses because you were young and immature when you first started. with me and Christina, it's a little bit different is because we spent so many different years away from each other in terms of our 20s, and that was our developmental times. So we came in with preconceived notions. We came in with not an understanding of who we were, but we had an understanding of what we were willing to put up with and what we were willing not to put up with. So when you go through those types of issues in the marriage, you have to have an open lines of communication, and it has to be something where a person knows, I'm not going to judge you for feeling this way. I'm not going to judge you for feeling that way. And a lot of times, a lot of people overlook that and don't understand how strong that is, because with her, it took her a while for her to understand, like, okay, well, I guess some of it is my fault, or I can see why he can react this way. And like I said before, you got to be honest with yourself.
But am I stubborn?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. I didn't answer that for you. So for me, I agree with what my wife said earlier, and for us, I think we're way past like silent treatment. It'll maybe happen like once in the blue moon. It's not anything that happens often, but one thing that we have made a vow, and I would challenge everybody that's watching this is it is so imperative that when you are communicating, whether it's your response to the communication or the communication itself, it is absolutely 100% imperative that you control how you interact with and interpret and respond to that communication, because the way you develop and deal with things like that can totally change the mood of everything. And my wife is so hilarious. She'll do stuff like I'll come home and I'll kiss her but not hug her, and there was a moment that she needed a hug, and then she'll be like, dang, you ain't even hug me. But then I'll go to hug her and she'll be like, no, I don't want you to hug me, but you just told me you wanted me to hug you, and now you don't want me to hug you because you have to say something about it. And it's just like, it's okay. Just if you need that from me in that moment, either A, tell me, babe, I need you to hug me right now, or just come and hug me. Just come and hug me, because once you embrace me, you know that I'm going to embrace you, and everything that you need, that you desire in that moment, you're going to get. So I don't know. Somebody said this in our comments. Sometimes we want our spouses to be mind readers, and we can't expect that, from our spouses. We have to tell them what we want, what we need. This is what I need from you in this moment, and you have to take it from there. So that's what I would say. And I really wanted to get into very specific relationships, because I think it's, when people can relate something that they're going through to something that somebody else is and or was going through, it's easier to kind of navigate that. So that's why I asked very specific questions to the couples and the divorcee that we have on the line. But we have made it into the point in our episode where we are going to start with our final thoughts. And because this was Tammy's topic, we're going to start with Tammy.
I got a question first. How was this Tammy's topic? This was not Tammy's topic.
I just donned it your topic. I just made it your topic.
Oh, okay. I think my takeaway from tonight is effective communication is key. And one thing that I was talking to my friend earlier today, and we were talking about communication and relationships. And basically, the context going out, the communication going out, and the response is all communication. So I think we should use everything that we have learned throughout these series to be able to communicate effectively, so it can build our relationships up. I think the response is, you will need to be assertive in your communication, giving it out, and your response. So I think we just need to work on that, and that's very difficult when you're dealing with your spouse. That's very difficult, but I think we should compromise and work on effective communication, so therefore our spouses, our security nets, will not be lost in the sauce.
All right, heading over to them Crawfords.
You want me to go?
Go ahead.
As always, I enjoy having these conversations. I actually do always take a little bit from them and just kind of take a little bit of input from everybody. And like I said, leave it in my back pocket for later. My final thoughts, don't want to too much dwell on both of the topics too much, but the first one, I disagree totally with the meme. I don't think that that is true. I think that is just, it could just be, it doesn't matter who it is, male, female, whatever. I just think behavior just comes with, you know, how a person is treated. It's an individual reaction. It's not necessarily, you know, the actions of everyone to just because it's a woman and because men change their behavior. No, I don't agree with that. I do think, however, sometimes that some actions can cause a reaction. So I'll just leave it at that because of my own personal experience. On the second topic, I feel like I have myself personally been getting better. As far as communication goes, I'm trying not to, because I tend to often think about how I acted in a certain situation, and I go back to it and I'm like, damn, E, you could have really handled that better, or you didn't even have to pop off like that. That's something I've been trying my best. Trust me, y'all. I'm trying really hard not to be, you know, like I used to be, where always being so ready, just so ready, like Jonathan said, as far as the double Dutch thing goes. I'm trying my best, you know, not to be that way and learn how to listen and not just listen for a rebuttal, but listen to understand the other person's point of view and then give critical and necessary feedback, not just necessarily talking just for the sake of having something to say. So I'm trying my best to get better with that. And I think that will be helpful in our relationships, which would be to understand where your partner is coming from, listen to them, understand the context and the reasoning behind what they're discussing. And then, like I said, give a response that's critical or effective or helpful for the situation, and not necessarily just to give a response just for the sake of, for us to have an argument. I think that would help. And I think that has been, you know, kind of helping Jonathan and I for the most part, even though I think he's the one who played the double dutch the most, but that's neither here nor there.
Don't do that.
That's neither here nor there. But I think he's the one who's ready to always have a comment. But like I said, it's something that it's a work in progress, even after so many years, but it still is a work in progress.
All right.
And like I say, I agree. I enjoy these topics, these conversations. I learn a lot. I put myself out there more than I usually would, because I'm definitely not an open book. I don't like telling nobody my personal business and putting nobody in my space. So I do. I appreciate y'all for listening. I appreciate y'all input. I still believe that it is. I'm going to stick with 65% communication itself and 35% the response, because that's just what I experience. I don't know what Erica experienced, but that's what I experienced. And I'm going to stick by 1,000% that women is emotionally unstable creatures. I'm going to stick with that. So no, we don't have to say nothing to y'all, and y'all will snap off on us. All I have to do is stick my key in the door, Erica going off. I ain't even came in the house yet. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, I'm sticking with what I said, but that's it. Tammy, be quiet.
All right, we're going over to the Greens.
So again, for me, like I said in the first episode, I definitely believe it's the communication from whoever I am having that conversation with. That's going to depend on how my behavior is toward that person going forward, from the day we meet, going forward, whenever the case may be. It just really depends on, I match energy. So if I'm feeling a good vibe, you get a good vibe. If I'm not, then I'm not. You know what I'm saying? So for me, that's just really how it is. The second part of the question, I'm sorry, audience, but I was gone, so I'm not really sure what the second part of the question was. But if it was how you are dealing with communication in your own relationship, I think that my communication has gotten better. I'm not stubborn, as previously stated by some people on this episode.
With being able to admit what's wrong with you.
However,
you're being stubborn right now.
However, I can have an attitude. I still may give the silent treatment every now and again, but however, I do realize when I give the silent treatment, that does make our arguments last longer than when I just stay in the conversation and try to have it. So I am kind of getting away from that a little bit, but for the most part, I'm easygoing, so I really don't keep no attitude that long. I just be like, whatever.
Man, I think a lot of it has to do with what Erica said, because you're not going to always be able to watch your words before you say them. A lot of it is like the self-reflection, because even if you do make a mistake, you should be able to go back and say, okay, well, man, maybe I handled this incorrectly, and be honest with yourself, and sometimes being honest with your spouse, because some people have problems with like apologizing. And that's an easy way to apologize, by basically saying, you know what, did I come at you wrong? What did I do wrong? What could I have done better? And sometimes that takes a lot of humility. I don't think people are born being humble. You have to be humble a lot of times throughout life. And that's a lot of things that I find is very hard on my end and on Christina's end. And I think there's a lot of people that deal with that. So I think
being humble, you think it's hard for me to be humble?
Yes. Not have a humble personality, but be humble when it comes to something that you do wrong. I think everybody struggles with that. I think most people struggle with being able to, fall on the sword to say, okay, well, I was wrong. Sometimes people notice it too far down the road and you've already caused the damage. So I think that's very important. And I think it's important because during this time where you're spending more time with your spouses, more time with your boyfriend and girlfriend, these are unusual times. So you have to be able to get in front of certain things before they balloon or mushroom or something that you can't handle or something that you can't live with. Because it's a lot of people being abused in every which way in their relationships on both ends. So I think these conversations are very important based off of, the direction or positive direction anybody wants to go into marriage. So when, like we state at any other time, I would encourage anybody in our listening audience to, basically discuss these same issues, these same topics with their spouse to kind of start the conversation.
All right, go ahead, babe.
Like everyone has stated, I feel like this is a good discussion that we're having real talks about different things within our relationships to help other people get over that hump or even prevent them from having to go through that obstacle. The initial meme, I disagree with it. However, I do understand that in some situations that could be true, but I think that is too broad and too general to make a staple for females in general. As far as this conversation is concerned, I guess for me, my takeaway goes back to the safety net that we talked about. Just being intentional about building a healthy relationship and not abusing the space that you guys are building, not abusing your partner, and not physical abuse, but I'm saying like taking advantage of them, of their kindness or of their support that they are providing you. Yes, they vow to provide support, but you have to understand that there are limits, and you also vow to support them in overloading them with things that are irrelevant or things that causes injury to the relationship is unfair to them. When it comes to communication, I think that we have come a long way within our relationship, but I think that comes with self-awareness, like regulating yourself and checking yourself before you walk through the door. Like once you say it, you can't take it back, but you know that you had a rough day at work. You know that other things are happening. And so when you're in your car before you get home, you know what I'm saying? Just check yourself, like check your attitude. Like Jennifer, check yourself before you walk through that door. Like if he doesn't deserve it, like, yeah, you're having an issue. You need to flesh it out with him. Okay, let him know I have something that I need to talk to you about, or I need to vent to you about it. But if you just barge through that door and guns a-blazing, that's just causing another issue on your hand, and you're not really dealing with the issue at hand. It's kind of a scapegoat, and it's causing a detrimental issue within your relationship, and you also have issues at work now. So I just encourage you to assess yourself, assess your relationship, Be open to change, being open to stabilizing the relationship if you are on the rocks, and knowing yourself and what you need in those moments.
Hey Frank, real quick, I just want to say we use boxing gloves too. So if that's something that can help people out, I think that's a good suggestion that we should put in the comments about the boxing gloves.
You use boxing gloves? Can you elaborate on that?
Think about it. Think about it. Think about it.
Huh?
Okay.
We both got boxing gloves, so if there's any kind of issue, we kind of hash it out.
Be quiet, Jason.
Right.
So, I love having these conversations, and I am overwhelmed by the amount of comments and responses that you guys leave. We do see them. We do try to comment. We do try to bring those on. So please do not think that your comments are not heard. Thank you so much for that. You know, it is, you know, and I said this earlier in the episode, you know, when we have these different topics and when we talk about these things, it is my hope and prayer that it is helping you guys as much as it is helping us. Because even though and I believe I can speak for everybody on the panel, even though we are sharing our perspectives and where we are and where we've come from, these conversations are still helping us in our marriages that we are in, and then in our, you know, the future relationships that, you know, we're going to be in and we're going to develop. So when you do hear us and we do talk about, you know, going to those places and speaking from the you know, my wife teases me a lot. She says, you need to stop speaking from your unlearned self, because stop speaking from your learned self, and you don't forget that you were unlearned for a long time, you know, and once you learn something and you do better, you do speak from that place. But I do want you guys to know that the Frank and the marriage that I have today was not the marriage that I had 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years, a year ago. You know, it wasn't good. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't communicative. It was awful. You know, nobody knew that because we didn't talk about it, but it just wasn't good. So we want you to understand that relationships are not these great rainbows and unicorns and stuff all the time. You have those moments, you have those days. But when it gets down to the nitty gritty, we want to give you tools that you can use to make it through those things so that you do not end up in the ultimate painful thing, which is divorce and separation and splitting up. So I hope that you guys are receiving that and understanding that that's what we're doing and that's what we're sharing, because that's just our heart and that's what we want to do. So thank you guys so much for tuning in again. If you have not done so already, please like, share, subscribe, and comment on our page. Please do us a huge favor and head over to YouTube, search at Couples In, the letter N Conversations, subscribe to that page. You will get the opportunity to see a lot of never before seen footage on our YouTube channel. So definitely check that out. There's some episodes that we have not uploaded here on Facebook that are only going to be on YouTube. So check that out. Follow us on Instagram at Couples in Conversations and Twitter at Couples in Conversations. And we will see you on Monday. We have a super great topic for Monday. Listen, you don't want to miss it because we're going to, Monday is going to be very unique because we're going to be talking about some people that have had changed perspectives from having a conversation previously to now. So it's going to be awesome. So be here Monday, 8 p.m. Facebook Live, and then again on next Thursday for continuing the conversation. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.